Hello, Matthew.
Hello,
Today,
Irina.
yeah, we are. It's our last session of the e-conference, and a very interesting topic. You are going to talk about today combining content and cause, how this can boost your virtual events. And you are the director of social innovation and philanthropy at Refinitiv, and the founder and director of Ticket Aid. So today we will introduce the topic of social enterprise. And before we start, I would just like to briefly introduce you to the audience. You are Director of Social Innovation and Philanthropy at Refinitiv, and you are the Director and founder of Ticket Aid and Board Trustee at Refinitiv Charities. You are an inspirational speaker and award-winning social innovator. Your mission is to tease out the social impact potential in all of us. Uh, your most recent accomplishment, Ticket Aid, is one of very few examples of social entrepreneurship success that has led you to establish Refinitiv Charities as a founding trustee, as well as being named as 35 under 35 changemakers for 2019 and UN Sustainable Development Goals Pioneer Runner-up. To quote you, collectively we can be a force for good in pursuing social impact initiatives, no matter how big or small, and you challenge your audience to take up the mantle as social innovators within the private, public, and service sector to do more, see more, and be more. So I'm very excited that you are part of this e-conference, and we'll talk about your business, Ticket Aid, and how this can support social causes, but also increase engagement among our audience. So before we go into this topic in depth, I would like if you could define what is social enterprise and how it applies to events, and how social enterprise differs from corporate social responsibility.
Great. Thank you for the introduction, Irina. It's a pleasure to be invited to speak to you all today at the final session of the day. I hope we can maintain the motivation and enthusiasm. And I'm obviously going to be biased, but I think it's a fantastic topic to end the day on, and hopefully something uplifting for everyone watching this. And you can take something away that potentially you can incorporate into your future events. And to your point, Irina, social enterprise is what I'll be speaking about today, primarily because I'm founder, as you mentioned, and director of Ticket Aid, which is itself a social enterprise. I'll touch a little bit briefly on what it is, what we do, but just to answer that question up front in terms of how social enterprise can help in the event space, can add value to events, but equally that difference and distinction between social enterprise and corporate social responsibility. And maybe I'll start with that. So CSR, as it's otherwise called, or corporate social responsibility, is usually something that organizations build in as part of their makeup and their focus. So they might have a finance department, a HR department, they might have a sales department, and corporate social responsibility sometimes sits as its own department within a larger organization. And they'll focus primarily on corporate giving. They'll look at how they can offset their carbon emissions. They'll look at sustainability. They'll look at signing up to various initiatives and reporting on sustainable initiatives that they're delivering on, for example. It can cover volunteering, it can cover charitable giving, the whole spectrum. And corporate social responsibility is quite broad, but focused and born internally out of that corporate domain. Social enterprise, on the other hand, can actually complement corporate social responsibility, but it sits very separate. It is an organization, a business, like any other business, that is focused on giving a certain percentage of the profits, if not all of the profits, to a cause or to a particular charity. And social enterprises are generally set up, you may have heard, people, profit, purpose, or people, planet, purpose. There's lots of 3 Ps knocking around, but essentially that's really where social enterprise sits. It's combining the enterprise model with purpose and hoping to make a social impact through the activity of that business. And ticketaid.com is an example of that. We set up a website essentially about 3 years ago, and it stems from that frustration I'm sure a lot of us have had, certainly in the event space, as an attendee of a particular event, where tickets potentially to a really popular event sell out straight away. And we have this secondary market that's in place, quite a nefarious secondary market in some instances, where people try and make a profit through reselling those. They've got no intention of going to that event, but they resell them to try and make a profit, which unfortunately has meant a lot of people haven't been able to go to those events or buy those tickets or sit in those seats, and sometimes those seats remain empty. So TicketAid was put in place. The whole idea was to fill those empty seats for good causes, and we've been doing that for about 3 years now. We've raised around 150,000 US dollars for charity as a result of that. What we do is give 100% of the proceeds to charity. So tickets that are otherwise going to go to waste, we list them on the website. Anyone can go to ticketaid.com, see what we have listed there, buy those tickets, knowing that 100% of the proceeds go to charity. And we started off in the ticket industry, or the ticket allocation industry, but have slowly started branching out into more than that. So looking into retail, merchandise, looking into the auction space. And the way that that can be incorporated into events, I'll touch on as we progress throughout this final session. But I think it's a really interesting way, certainly given the current climate with this global pandemic, how the virtual event space, and certainly having a digital strategy, as you are very well aware of, Irina, with having to do your own digital version of your event this year, how the virtual space can actually really emphasize that impact. And if you could combine the content that you're presenting at a virtual level, but equally after this pandemic's over, thinking about that as part of your strategy at an in-person conference or meeting level, then hopefully, I mean, I've got examples of how this has happened over the past couple of months that I'll touch on. It could very well boost your attendance. I mean, clearly the virtual space gives you potentially an unlimited audience capacity, and ways in which you can capture that audience attention and channel it towards social good or a cause or a charity. The options are endless, really.
Yeah, I think social enterprise, we don't, like, among us, among event professionals, we don't speak enough about it. We speak a lot about sustainability, about CSR, but the social enterprise model is very, very interesting. There's a lot of potential actually to apply to events, and we met at an event, and the moment you mentioned the social enterprise, you said, I want to have you as a speaker in my event, because I think it's very, very important and has huge potential for us to become also more sustainable. So yes, all event businesses have to pivot in the past month, and you as well. You could sell physical tickets to events and adjust to the new environment. How did you think creatively to maintain the profit and the donations through general fundraising?
No, it's a great question, and obviously the nature of our social enterprise that is fundamentally based on tickets to live events, to venues, to theatres, or even kind of the events and conferencing space. Those tickets to in-person events naturally have practically been non-existent. So we were faced at the start of the pandemic of thinking, right, well, our inventory of tickets on the site has dried up. There will be no in-person tickets for events going forward. So how can we pivot to maintain our audience? But obviously the important factor for us is to continue raising money for charity. So and that's one of the reasons why we've broadened our approach, where we're not just about the ticket selling now or the ticket allocation, but we're looking at the general using ticketaid.com as a general fundraising platform. So people naturally come to our site because we've got ticket in the name for tickets, but they now discover a much broader store that's available to them. We've had a lot of people suggest throughout the course of lockdown and the pandemic, we're at home where we've got families to look after, but we're still passionate about supporting a cause. How can we get involved with doing that from the comfort of our own home? Or the chaos of our own home, if it may be, if you've got children running around everywhere and you're trying to focus on the day job. And we were able to offer TicketAid.com as a platform for people to create their own events, to engage with their colleagues virtually, and to think about how they can give back as part of that engagement. And they may not have been comfortable charging for that ticket or charging to run that event. So we had a lot of people saying, actually, can I just use TicketAid to allocate tickets free of charge, but encourage people to throw a donation in the pot? This is other people speaking, but they may have said to me, I'm passionate about clean water and sanitation. And I want to help my local community. Is there a way in which I can run a yoga at home session free of charge, put it out there, and then people that want to engage with me on my own curated event can help me support a cause that's of importance to me? So we've seen a lot of people think creatively about creating their own events directly through TicketAid. We had people pick up hobbies. Of course, during lockdown, you've had a lot more time to maybe it's pick up the guitar, I've got some behind me, and play some music, or get into watercolor painting, which was an example of a colleague of ours. He painted some fantastic watercolor pieces of artwork and wanted to put them on TicketAid to engage an audience and sell those to raise money for charity. And we put those on at an auction level. So no, I've been blown away by actually the proactive approach of people, of our users. Actually, to your point, we were struck with a very difficult situation early on in having no tickets on the site and thinking, well, where do we go from here to attract an audience to buy tickets or engage with a ticket allocation website where there are no tickets? And what we found was actually focusing on the impact, focusing on how we can create a community of collaborators and event creators to think creatively about how they can support people during this pandemic and do it through the event space. And TicketAid ended up being a really nice virtual opportunity or alternative for people to do that.
And what type of event formats have you seen that use TicketAid? So, for example, was it a pub quiz or yoga at home, or you mentioned painting? What are the creative formats you've seen?
It's endless, really. And I've kind of come to work every week and I'm amazed at the emails that I've received from people saying, we should do this, we should do this. From CEOs or executive leaders at companies saying, why don't we auction off CEO for the day? That'd be a really great way to engage our employees and think creatively about how we can raise funds for charity. We've had coaching sessions. High-profile business leaders offer up a one-to-one meet and greet virtually, of course, but over a Zoom call or whatever virtual platform you use to catch up with people. Artwork is another example. Fitness at home sessions. We had mentors, actually, and authors of non-fiction books say, actually, I'd like to put a couple of donations of my book on the site. I'm happy to run a half-an-hour session to talk about what I talk about in that book, and all the proceeds from the sale of that book will go to charity, and we'll do that through TicketAid as well. So people have been getting really creative, thinking about actually, and this is what TicketAid was all about, what assets we currently have at our disposal. We started off in the corporate hospitality ticket market, where organizations have these tickets, but they're not using them. So in a way, we're doing something very similar here, thinking about what we have at our disposal as assets or knowledge or experience that we can share with people, and just thinking about it in a different way that has an impact focus that we can channel towards a certain cause or charity.
Yeah, some very good ideas. Thank you for sharing. And from your experience, what you see, what type of companies organize events with a fundraising or social enterprise element? Are these big corporations? Mm-hmm. Are these tech financial companies? What sort of companies do this at the moment?
It's a broad range, if I'm honest. Initially, it started out being the larger organizations, primarily because I think once the pandemic hit, the smaller SMEs, the third sector entities that we work with, were too busy working out how they can survive during the lockdown. So large organizations, I think, had the benefit of time and resource to think a bit more creatively about how they can engage in this space. So we had large organizations come to us saying, great, we actually want to engage our employees whilst they're working from home. Can we run events on TicketAid and put that towards a COVID-19 relief fund that we as an organization want to be supporting? So we've seen organizations support the likes of Médecins Sans Frontières through to the International Rescue Committee, World Health Organization, and running some really interesting events through TicketAid to support those charities and causes. But equally, I think as the months progressed and the dust settled slightly, we started to see the smaller organizations come to us and say, actually, we want to try and give back as well. We want to try and do something. Yes, we may have a lot of our staff on furlough at the moment, but our staff that are on furlough want to keep themselves engaged and active, and something that's not work related, of course, being on any furlough scheme, you can't engage in work, but maybe we can volunteer and maybe we can give back to the community. So we started to use TicketAid in a way that could help furloughed staff think a bit creatively, keep themselves busy whilst they weren't working, to support their local community or a charity. And then right through to the third sector and charities coming to us saying, we've got some great celebrity ambassadors. We've got some, we were planning on doing some live in-person events. And as part of that, we've got some giveaways, but we can't now distribute those because we aren't running that event anymore. Can we put those on TicketAid and use that as a campaign for us to raise funds for charity? Because the third sector and a lot of charities have been struggling, as you can imagine. Yes, a lot of the focus has been on the COVID-19 frontline medical support charities, but this is going to have a much longer knock-on impact through education we've seen recently, through to even mental health and well-being is a really, really strong part of what we need to be thinking about support-wise, and charities, even if they're not frontline medical support charities, still require that funding. So we've had them come to us saying, can we tell our narrative, tell our story, and use TicketAid as a way to generate a fundraising campaign throughout this this virtual situation that we find ourselves in?
Yeah. I think it's amazing that both big and small companies can engage with social enterprise initiative and social causes. And one more example you mentioned when we had the preparation call is that, for example, working with a charity organization and inviting them as a speaker and then donating for making donations for their causes. And there are many ideas definitely that we can integrate, big or small companies. Yes, so you touched, I wanted to ask you the next question, what elements of the event can be transferred to fundraising, which you partly already responded, is to donate the giveaways, is to organize social events. Is anything else that you would add?
Yeah, I think fundamentally you have to look at the nature of the event that you're running and its ability to digitize any version of that if we're talking about a virtual event. But equally, combining that with a cause isn't as straightforward as it may appear. And if you did want to fundraise as part of that, you do have to be quite careful and specific so as not to just appear to be fundraising for the sake of fundraising. You want it to mean something, whether or not that's because it's raising awareness about the local community that you find yourself in, and that's where the event was going to be held, etc., through to the industry that you're in. You know, is there a theme that you can align that fundraising initiative with? You may have heard of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. There are 17 of them. The chances are there's probably one of them that you can align your own business and theme of the event to. And there are a lot of different causes and charities that fall under those UN Sustainable Development Goals that you can think about and incorporate as part of your narrative. So yeah, I think you have to think about the what'll resonate with your audience from a fundraising perspective, and you can turn that into a fundraiser in a number of different ways. If it's a ticketed event, tickets, you can put a certain percentage of the tickets or the certain percentage of the proceeds from those tickets to a particular charity that you've picked. And as I mentioned, so long as you've made that alignment towards why you've picked that charity and why it's of interest or of importance, given the nature and theme of the event, that will resonate with the audience and give you a sense of purpose that resonates beyond that event. So everyone that ends up getting that ticket, knowing that, let's say, even 10% of the proceeds of that ticket has gone to support a local social enterprise or a local charity, for example, they'll attend that event, but the impact of their attendance at that event will last so much longer than the hour or day or 2 days conference, whatever it may be that they've done, because they know they've had a lasting impact through the ticket price that they've paid for that on a local charity that the meeting or conference has looked at supporting. So tickets is a great one to think about. If you're not in a position to charge for tickets, or you don't want to allocate proceeds of those tickets, you find it because your costs are high, for example, and you can't really allocate any of the proceeds to a charity, you can look at low budget options. There are a couple of examples of that where you can actually put the onus on the attendees. So, you might not be able to afford to charge for those tickets or give proceeds to charity, but if your attendees join, there are ways in which you can collaborate with social enterprise or charities to say, if we get X amount of people joining this conference, can we in turn work with you to turn that into a fundraising initiative? And there's no harm in inviting that social enterprise or charity to come and spend 10-15 minutes talking about what they're doing, raising awareness about the cause. Again, I stress the importance of it being relevant to your audience. Don't just bring in any charity or cause that won't resonate or doesn't have any connection whatsoever to your theme as a conference or a meeting or your industry, but get them to come and talk and share their story. And your audience may actively want to fundraise or donate or contribute without you making that specific ask, just through hearing and experiencing that virtually or in person in 2021, for example. So yeah, tickets you could put the onus on the attendees themselves. Equally, you can think a little bit creatively about how you've done your research for that event. There are some great examples of search engine alternatives out there. There's a really great example of an alternative called Ecosia. Some of you may be aware of that, where it's an alternative to Google. You can use it as a search engine, but for all the activity you generate through Ecosia, they plant trees from that revenue that they would have generated through advertisements. So you could say, if you're on a particularly low budget, but you still want that cause or impact to resonate with your meeting, conference, or event, you could say, the research that I've conducted for the entirety of this event, or my reaching out to networks through to the social media campaigns we've run, doing the research on the local area, etc., you've done that through Ecosia search, and Ecosia will give you a track of how many trees you've planted. And that's one way of even just demonstrating your commitment as an event organizer to have an impact and to look at the event space sustainably, to look at ways in which, even just through activity, it doesn't have to be about money all the time, handing money over as donations. Even just through generating that search activity, you can have a positive impact and give back. So there are lots of different ways out there, but creativity is key. I think you've got to really firstly tie that cause or initiative to what's of importance to your audience and the theme of your meeting, conference, or event, but then think creatively about what you have at your disposal and how you can activate that impact in various ways.
Yeah, a lot of very interesting ideas. And you were surprised how successful the engagement was with internal events and employee engagement. Can you talk about these events and what elements proved to be the most successful? So, for example, you said that employees hosted their own events to support the local communities, and that means that the communities, they just come together naturally, but they just need a cause to support. And event organizers, they need to give them the right content. So the internal events were more engaging than the external events, and you were surprised how it was. So can you talk a little bit more about these internal events? How many employees came together?
Mm-hmm.
What did they do, and how long the event was, or what was the lead time?
Yeah, sure. So we had a number of different examples, internal focused events where a lot of employees were saying, we're at home, we want to still have a bit of an office environment or engage with our colleagues virtually. How can we do that? And I'm sure a lot of you have also been a part of these virtual pub quizzes that have been taking place. We've had virtual pub quiz fatigue recently, so I haven't been on one well, recently at least, but certainly during the first couple of weeks of the lockdown, a lot of people wanted to run their own team virtual pub quizzes. So we had, I think up to the largest quiz that we ran through ticketaid.com was about 300 people. And primarily that was because Microsoft Teams has a limit of 300 people joining that call. So we were limited to a capacity, but we hit that 300 number. And had we had the ability to invite 500 or 600, as a result of that, we did a number of quizzes to cater for the people that weren't able to join that first one. But we had a lot of people engage in that format through to exercise. A lot of people wanted to set 10K challenges, 5K challenges, whereas a team of colleagues or employees, even though they're not in the office together and they're at home with their families, they could run around their park and they could digitally track how much time they've run for, or the distance they've traveled, and compare that with colleagues and run a bit of a challenge or competition with who's run the furthest in 7 days. And they've ran that for a 7-day period. We've kind of updated them as to how much they've scored and how much they've raised for charity, because they turned that into a fundraiser as well. And at the end of that, they had a leaderboard of winners. And the winners, in some instances, the challenge was, if you win, you get to pick the charity that you want to see the proceeds go to. So that was their incentive in winning, because they could pick a charity close to home as an individual, and it wasn't dictated by the organization. So those instances, we found ourselves supporting very local and very niche specific charities that we would not have come across otherwise, had we not put the opportunity in the attendees' hands, really, as a result of that. So a whole range of events, fitness, virtual pub quizzes, to auctions as well. And the biggest auction we ran, I think about, again, 300 people were a part of that, because it was a Teams live auction on a Teams call. And we had a number of items up for auction that people bidded for throughout the course of that call live, and we announced the winners at the end of that as well. So I think in terms of how long they last for as well, it varied, but the longest one we did was for like a 7-day challenge, and the shortest period was just a kind of a 2-hour call, virtual call.
Excellent. And can you talk about partnerships and collaborations on virtual events? Because, for example, collaborations can expand the reach of your virtual event. What type of partnerships have you seen? Is it appropriate to have multiple causes for an event?
Mm-hmm. No, a good question. I think I'll touch on the final one first, because I've almost covered it already. Multiple causes, whilst give you the opportunity to have a wider or broader reach in terms of impact, I think you'll dilute your message. You've got to really hone in on what's of importance that you think's of importance to your audience, what's relevant to the attendees of your session or meeting or conference, whatever, or event, whatever that may be. And I think the way in which you could do that is be specific about the cause you've selected. Now, there's no harm in picking 1, 2, or 3 causes if you've got a broad range of topics that you're covering, and you can align those different causes with the topics that you're talking about. But definitely don't go out there with an unlimited number of causes. It'll dilute that message. You really want to portray a strong narrative of impact. And actually, if you do end up turning or bringing in an element of fundraising into what you do at that event, you'll dilute the funds raised if you want to support too many causes. So you'll have much more of an impact if you focus in. I would recommend no more than 1 or 2, and say, actually, if we do have a fundraiser, all the funds raised will go to this charity. You imagine if you raise £1,000 and you have to split that across 100 different causes and charities, it's not going to have as much an impact as if you picked a very local small charity and you raised £1,000 and that went a really long way for that charity. It could even be the largest donation they've ever received. So yeah, make it focused, specific. Don't pick too many causes, definitely, and think about what will resonate with your audience, and make them walk away, or virtually walk away, from that event thinking that they've made a lasting impression as a result of that, helping that cause, or even just raising awareness for that cause. In terms of the giving angle, from a social enterprise perspective, I think there are different ways that you can work with social enterprises as part of your event organization. You can think about even just reaching out to a social enterprise. If they're a technology software provider platform, think about incorporating that as part of your event. A lot of these social enterprises are startups. They're small enterprises, and vast majority of the time they're looking for platforms or an audience to test their capabilities, or test their channels, test their impact, really. And I think the event space is the perfect opportunity for social enterprises to be given that platform, not only to be given a voice to potentially have a 10-minute slot talking about what they do at that event, but to provide whatever it is their service is or product is to that event as a way to get some validation, customer feedback. That's all very important in the early stages of running a social enterprise. And of course, from the event side of things, you would want to be engaging with social enterprises to help, again, strengthen that narrative around impact, to focus on that particular cause. If it's local and you bring in a local charity or a local social enterprise that's focused on teaching youths to all kind of children from disadvantaged background to code, and the events around really niche market but tourism technology, it could be a really good way for you to work with that partner and say, great, let's put our heads together and think about how we can engage our audience with the cause that we're focused on. So and social enterprise can actively contribute to your event, can benefit your event, add value to your event, but equally it's an opportunity for social enterprises to scale their impact, and I think that's something that you would want to be a part of at an event level, and something for you to then feel proud of and take away afterwards, knowing that you've had this double impact. You've impacted your audience with a really fantastic, engaging event, but equally had that lasting impact through partnering with that social enterprise.
Yeah. Okay, we will slowly be coming to the close of the interview, so I just want to reach out to the audience. If you have any questions to Matthew, please do so now in the comments section. Okay, so next question is, so now I want to incorporate a social enterprise element into my event. Where shall I start? Are there any resources or organizations where I can start and seek support and advice?
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's really difficult actually to find a list of social enterprises. I think clearly throughout the year you have the Forbes top 5, top 10, top 30, and companies that are focused on impact, for example. But it's very difficult to find an exhaustive list, or even a non-exhaustive list, of types and ranges of social enterprise out there. You could potentially look at B corporations, which are certified. They're not necessarily always social enterprises. A lot of them are big organizations that have their B Corp certification, and that's a independently certified certification that is assessed and actually very difficult to have. So if you find an organization that is a B Corp organization, they've gone through a lot of different hurdles and hoops to prove that they're, among other things, a sustainable company that are looking at building purpose into their business model. but they're not always social enterprises. So I think actually looking for that list is just a case of taking a step back and thinking, okay, how can I, in the organization and running of this event, think creatively about making an impact? And once you start throwing some ideas on the table as to how you can bring in impact as part of that event, you can start doing some searching online as to, is there someone out there that can help us provide, I don't know, if you're thinking about a giveaway, look for a sustainable giveaway instead. And if you're thinking about running something online, think about working with a provider that does it in a different way that has a social impact angle to it. So yeah, start by thinking creatively, put some ideas on the table, and then just go out and search. I mean, worst case scenario, clearly this is my space, so I'm sure my email will be sent after this meeting. Feel free to drop me an email. I'm happy to put some suggestions in and say, look, what's the theme of your event? What are you focused on doing? I'm connected with a lot of these social enterprises. I'd be happy to make some referrals and throw some bullet points in there as suggestions as well. So yeah, there isn't an exhaustive list out there. It is a case of doing a bit of research, but again, think creatively about it, and look at alternatives. So if you do something consistently one way, think about doing it a different way that could have a social impact angle to it. And you might be surprised, there could be someone out there, a social enterprise out there, that is doing that, from providing a booth at an event, and I'm talking in-person events now, that's made entirely out of sustainable material, through to, if you're having a coffee stand, making sure the beans for that coffee stand are ethically sourced, fair trade, certified rainforest. You know, there are a lot of different ways you can add alternatives into your organization and actual running of the event that could have that social impact angle to it.
Yeah. Okay, coming to our last question. You talked about trying to find the cause to an event and reach out to a charity or the organization. Do you think, or from your experience, what you've seen so far, you first need, event organizers, do they first need to have an event and then look for a cause, or first have a cause and then organize an event?
It's the chicken and egg question, isn't it? What came first, the chicken or the egg? I think it's a really, really good point, because I come from the social enterprise sector. So I would say I'd think about the cause first and then build an event around the cause. But if this is the first time that you're thinking about incorporating social enterprise or a cause or impact to your event, clearly you've got to start with the event, because that's your bread and butter. You know what you do well, you know what you're good at. But having the back of your mind as you're planning for that event, how can you build in an impact element to this that goes above and beyond the event that you're running, and that has a lasting social, environmental impact for not just you as a brand and organization, but as for people that are actively engaging and attending that conference as well. So my answer would be cause and then event. But I think for the people on this call, you'll probably stick with what you're good at, start with the event, but have in the back of your mind the ways in which you can incorporate a cause and impact as part of that, and naturally you'll start thinking of ideas, and there'll be people out there that can help you achieve that.
Yeah. Okay, excellent. So this was the last question, and would you like to add anything or show us examples?
Yeah, sure, no problem. So actually, if we've got time, I can give you a very quick demo of ticketaid.com, because we've been very fortunate that we've had 2 donations as a result of the conference meeting, virtual event that you've run today, Irina, with the Switzerland Convention and Incentive Bureau and Bern Meeting and Events. They've both donated 2 items that we're able to auction off through the site today. The auction will last for 2 weeks, but I'm going to give you a quick example of what you can do and how you can get involved if you would like to bid for these items. All the money raised, by the way, will be going to Viva Con Agua, which is a charity, a non-profit that's focused on health and clean water and sanitation. And I can touch on that and show you exactly what they're all about in a second. But this is the ticketaid.com website. Anyone can access this, so you can go to ticketaid.com and you'll see exactly what I'm seeing here. All you need to do is click the store button and you'll see a whole range of publicly listed items that we have currently on the site, from celebrity designed and signed face masks that you can get your hands on, through to the 2 auctions that I want to touch on today. So you'll see we've got 2 auctions, an exclusive Swiss hamper and a one-night stay for 2 at Hotel Allegro Bern. And all you need to do in order to participate in these auctions is click the bid button. You can read about what it's all about, the terms and conditions, where you'll be staying if you're in the hotel, the reserve price, etc. All you need to do is click get bid, put in your bid here, tick the boxes. I won't do it just in case someone does want to place this bid. Hit place bid, and you'll have placed your bid for the 2 items that we have up for auction. So the first one is, as I mentioned, a one-night stay for 2 at Hotel Allegro Bern. The reserve price set for that is 75, so that's where we're first starting. The value of that panorama room, Swiss Advantage panorama room, is around 220. So yeah, at the moment, the 75 bid, you're getting a really good deal at a really good hotel. So I would encourage you to start placing your bids. You'll see the countdown timer on the landing page just here. So we've got, that'll change, by the way, because we wanted to make it a 2-week auction, not a 7-day auction. So after this call, I'll be changing that to 14 days, but you'll see there's 14 days left, X amount of time. So you can stay very close to it, set some alerts up if you wanted to, and keep coming back to the site to place your bids. So that was the one-night stay for 2. And by the way, that hotel overlooks the old town in Bern, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So a fantastic location. And as you can see, it's raising funds for Viva Con Agua. Both of them are raising funds for Viva Con Agua. The second one is an exclusive Swiss hamper, starting at £25, and you can place your bid for that. There are a couple of items included as part of that hamper, and we'll be filling in the details of that after this event as well. But a couple of examples: Swiss Army knife, SIGG bottle, wooden cow, etc. Think traditionally Swiss, and I'm sure it'll be part of that hamper. Shipping's included with that as well.
And I want to thank to our partners, Switzerland Convention and Incentive Bureau and Bern Meetings and Events, for providing these fantastic donations for a good cause. Yeah, so definitely after our session, I will explain more in detail on social media about this auction, and people can then donate for the next 2 weeks. Yeah, okay, Matthew. So now coming to the close of our session, how can people get in touch with you in case they have questions or they want to work with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy, as I mentioned, to receive any email, any LinkedIn message. You can find me on LinkedIn, Matthew O'Shea. Take a note of how it's spelt there. Some people spell my surname wrong and can't find me. It's an Irish surname with the apostrophe. But you can find me on LinkedIn, search for Matthew O'Shea. Equally, if you go to ticketaid.com, you'll find there's a contact section of ticketaid.com. I manage that mailbox. So if you email ticketaid@refinitiv.com, which is part of, and that's on the site, I'll read that email. Alternatively, my email address is matthew.o'shea@refinitiv.com, and Refinitiv is refinitiv.com. But I'd say the easiest way, find me on LinkedIn and drop me a message.
Excellent. Thank you, Matthew. Thank you, everyone watching us for the past 3 days. We had 9 sessions in total, so a lot of content to process and learn and network. Thank you, everyone, so much for being part of it and going with us this journey to Bern and joining us virtually this time. And I hope next time we can all meet in person and network and learn from each other. So thank you very much, Matthew.
No, thanks, Irina.
And all who joined us. And we'll keep in touch on social media. All the recordings will be on YouTube, and you can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, where also all the updates and the post write-ups will be published. Thank you very much, and a big thank you to our partners, Switzerland Convention and Incentive Bureau, Bern Meetings and Events, and all our 3 hotel partners, the Schweizerhof Bern and Spa, Hotel Bellevue Palace, and the Kursaal Bern. Thank you very much.